OK, well, are we about to see the end of Donald Trump? Now, I didn't think I'd have to say that this early, but the Democrats have moved rather fast and they're certainly hoping that this is their trump card. But the US president is not taking this lying down. He's weighed in on the impeachment inquiry with a caustic letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi earlier today. Lawmakers are preparing to vote on 2 articles of impeachment in less than 24 hours. I caught up with host of Outsiders James Morrow a short while ago for his take on what could determine who wins the next presidential race. James Morrow, thank you very much for your time.
Great to be here, Chris. OK, are we 24 hours away, really, from the President of the United States, only the 3rd one, from being impeached?
Well, what we're 24 hours away from now is basically the House of Representatives voting to impeach Donald Trump. So that means that they will send it to the Senate, where it would presumably proceed to some sort of a trial. But what it does not mean is that he's actually being removed from office. All they're doing is essentially saying, yes, we think that he should be tried in the Senate. So it is impeached in that sense, but it's not impeached in the sense of being removed from office. And that's the thing that people think is the more dramatic part of this, which is much further away, and which I don't think actually can or will happen here.
Explain to us, they've moved really fast, the Democrats, in this process, probably faster than any other impeachment in the history of the United States. And they're doing it because we're getting awfully close to the next presidential campaign, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, in one sense, they've been moving very fast. In another sense, they've been moving like molasses here, Chris. They have been trying to impeach Donald Trump since the very day he was elected president back on that night in November 2016, which we all remember. You know, ever since then, they have decided, the Democrats and the left and a lot of their enablers in the media have decided that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, somebody who does not deserve to occupy the White House. And so they have sought to tar him and impeach him and ultimately remove him from office. And I think part of the reason why they don't want to wait for November for that is because if they allow him to go to re-election, not only is he likely to be re-elected, given the current very sorry state of Democratic candidates out there, but also such an election would legitimize his presidency in the first 4 years of it. So they don't even want to let that happen. They want to basically undo this whole thing, undo the democratic process, and the American people aren't happy about it.
I think it's a factual statement to say that the majority of the American public is not screaming to impeach their president, are they?
No, and in fact, actually, that's the really interesting thing about this. You know, the Democrats started out with this whole very orchestrated, highly choreographed sort of thing that was supposed to convince the American people that Donald Trump was indeed a bad guy. But here's the thing. The American people saw through this. They say, no, hang on. You tried us with the Russia thing. We were prepared to go with you on the Russia investigation. The Mueller report came back with absolutely nothing. And then the Inspector General's report came and said that in the course of the Mueller investigation and in the course of the whole trying to pin some sort of Russian collusion on Trump, that the FBI and a lot of other people acted in really unsavory ways to try and basically frame him and a lot of his people up. So they're saying, well, now you want to get a do-over and say, oh, well, maybe he's tied in with the Ukraine now? Well, I think that most people are saying no. And here's an interesting point on that, Chris. Today, a CNN poll where Democrats had been saying 95% of Democrats wanted to see him impeached and removed from office. Well, that number's walked back to 77%, which suggests that even among Democrats, they're seeing through this and saying, you know what, let's just go to November and let's try and get a good candidate up in November and beat him fair and square at the ballot box.
My gut feeling tells me, and the polls are telling us this at the same time, that this could play right into the hands of Donald Trump. They may have done him the greatest favour leading into, vying for another term.
Absolutely. And again, you're seeing this reflected in the poll numbers. You're seeing Trump's poll numbers stay strong, in fact, get stronger. Democrat weakening in their support for impeachment. You're seeing record high economic growth, strong stock market, strong employment numbers all the way down the line. So people are saying, well, hang on. What's so bad about this guy that we have to get rid of him? And meanwhile, the Democrats are spending all of their time and all of their energy on this collusion, impeachment narrative, rather than doing what they should be doing right now, which is come up with a decent candidate to beat Trump in 2020, which politically they don't have at the moment.
No, they certainly don't. I love the way he wrote this letter to Nancy Pelosi. And look, the way he sort of formulated his words, it was so Trump-esque. For instance, more due process was afforded to the the accused in the Salem witch trials. It's a declaration of war on democracy, and he said an illegal coup attempt. It's like a call to arms, James.
Well, it really is. And, you know, I mean, it may seem hyperbolic, but on another level, he does have a point. You know, if you go back and you look at what the Inspector General said, if you look at the way the whole Mueller investigation played out, it was quite clear that the whole thing was set up from the start to prove the idea that he was guilty of something, when, of course, that something was simply beating Hillary Clinton, and that's the crime that they could never forgive him for.
Yes.
But that this whole thing was then, every bit of evidence gathering was predicated, framed up to get to that point of guilt. And, of course, they weren't able to get there at the end of the day. So, of course, Donald Trump is, you know, quite aggrieved because they've tried to take him down and, of course, they've missed.
Yeah, here's a little bit of what he had to say when he called a press conference early today, our time.
They took a perfect phone call that I had with the president of Ukraine, an absolutely perfect call. You know it, they all know it. Nothing was said wrong in that call. To impeach the president of the United States for that is a disgrace, and it's a mark in our country.
James, he looks to be really fired up. Do you think he's fired up, motivated because he fears what may happen, or is he motivated because he wants to use this to, you know, get the upper hand over the Democrats?
No, he wants to stick this in the Democrats' faces. He wants them to own this. He wants them to own the Inspector General's report, which has shown how, you know, for example, just one particular example, there are these special courts called FISA courts, which allow the FBI and the CIA to get warrants on American citizens to tap them in intelligence investigations. Now, the Inspector General's report found that at least with one guy, they made 17 different deliberate errors, all erring on the side of, you know, getting this guy stitched up for being some sort of colluder with the Russians to get this warrant. And they did this over and over again. The idea was that they were using, and I think that this really started probably during the Obama administration, they used the FBI to spy on a domestic political presidential campaign. I mean, it's Watergate all over again, except not through burglars, but official channels.
Yes, exactly, through official channels, which makes it even worse. Nancy Pelosi described his 6-page letter as sick. How do you think Nancy Pelosi is looking as this impeachment process goes on?
All right, look, Chris, I'm going to just say this to everybody out there. Whatever you've got to deal with tomorrow, whether it's, you know, a hard day at the office or a lot of Christmas shopping to do or something, your day is not going to be as crummy as Nancy Pelosi's, because she is caught. Because Nancy Pelosi, she's no dummy. She didn't get where she is today by being some raving, feral left-wing lunatic. She's quite politically savvy, but she has lost control of the Democratic Party. She's got this hard left radical mob to her left that she has to now go along with, or like, you know, leftists who don't go far enough in revolutions everywhere, you know, they take off her metaphorical head. So they have got, you know, her going along with this impeachment thing, which she is smart enough to know is a dog, and she has to go along with it now because she is trying to hold her party together. If she can't do that, then the Democrats just wind up flying all over the place.
And that's what people have got to realise. You're dead right. They committed to this. They found out that their so-called deep throat was not a deep throat at all. They didn't want to lose face, and so they've kept driving this nail into the coffin, and it may break, and they may see this in the not-too-distant future. What's your prediction in terms of how this vote will go ahead of us from here?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, you know, they'll send it to the Senate, and then Mitch McConnell essentially quashes it in the Senate. He has said, look, this is not a judicial process. This is a political process. I will be a political actor here, as has everyone. You cannot, what McConnell is saying, you cannot introduce new evidence in a Senate trial. The place to do that is in the House, and then send that to the Senate. But if they do wind up getting a Senate trial up, well, it's bad news for a lot of people. It's bad news for Joe Biden. It's bad news for his son, Hunter Biden, who was on the take from a Ukrainian oil and gas company with a lot of dodgy connections there. And so this whole thing will wind up, if they get the trial that they really want to the Senate, which I don't think they will, it will become an absolute circular firing squad for the Democrats.
Yeah, all of that will be laid out in front of public view. So let's put a timeline on it. If it doesn't go to trial, how long do we have to sit and wait for this to be over? And if it does, how long then?
Well, look, everybody wants to get this thing over with quickly, I think.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, so if it goes to the Senate this week, then potentially they sit through Christmas. Hopefully, you know, they can knock this thing over by December, January, because the Democrats are going to want to get out there and be campaigning as well. So they need to get this thing done. You know, they won't be looking at the holiday, but I'd say by Australia Day, they'd be wanting to get it done.
Okay. politicians working over Christmas. What a conflict of interest that would be for them. Thank you so much.
Their keep.
That's right. James Morrow, thank you very much for that explanation.
Thanks, Chris. See you later.